Tom, you were saying, setting up how going to be about Rey, no matter what, isn't it? Because that's what they think they got going for them. This was something that was also in the Hollywood Reporter, as well as an upcoming video of ours, how they seem to be of the opinion that Rey is their strongest Star Wars asset. You want to take it from there, Tom? Or do you
I mean, really, what can you say other than it does sound like there's a little bit more... Well, here's the thing. This story makes it sound like this must have leaked from Kinberg's camp. Because it's sounding more and more like Star Wars and Lucasfilm are like, oh, well, we weren't ready to announce this yet.
Well, they definitely weren't. That we could say for certain right away.
But, again, if it comes up in the earnings call coming up here, then we know damn well Bob is full of shit. But, that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in Kinberg or Kathleen Kennedy's camp leaked this to the press. In fact, you thought the former to begin with. But it seems more like it's probably Kinberg's camp. So we got the news that he had signed up to do a trilogy, not just a movie, but a trilogy for Star Wars. And it would consist of episodes 10, 11, and 12.
Oh, geez.
And the big question is, what about the Daisy Ridley Rey movie with director Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy? Is this one and the same? Is that still on? Is this taking its place? Nobody really knows the answer to that. But it's looking more and more like this will be a Rey story. Because according to Disney, as we pointed out at the beginning of the story, she is their biggest asset.
Or rather, they think she is their biggest asset. Let's begin with that. Let's begin with, gentlemen, Scribe, let's hear from you first. Do you agree with Disney and Lucasfilm's assessment that Rey is their biggest asset?
Well, given to the lengths they've gone to destroy every other asset of the Star Wars franchise over the last 10 years, between emasculating Luke and killing off Han and turning the Mandalorian into a joke, she may, by some kind of weird margin, actually be their biggest active asset. Because she's probably
the place you are looking for is she may have won by default.
Well, yes, she's the Kamala Harris of the Star Wars universe right now. At least as far as nomination for being the biggest asset. I mean, she's
stealing that one from you.
That's perfectly fine. No, she is. I mean, she is the most recognizable element of modern Star Wars. If nothing else, if you see that image of Daisy Ridley, you know that you're looking at Star Wars of a kind. So in that sense, maybe, and that's what they've sort of like fooled themselves into thinking, is like everything that survived the prequel trilogy, the only recognizable-ish element is Rey. So I suppose, but I don't know why they keep banking on her, because she's a failure. She's a mark of division between the actual fan base for the franchise and this fantasy fan base that they think exists, but obviously doesn't. So I don't know. I think it's further self-delusion on Lucasfilm's part and Kathleen Kennedy.
Can we just take one moment to appreciate the fact that Kamala Harris is now just a footnote political joke somewhere between Hillary Clinton and Monica Lewinsky?
I want to get into that real quick. She may be running for governor of California in 2026.
Good luck.
She's not. You never know. You never know.
Well, just
they'll lose their minds because they don't know who to choose between Newsom and her.
There's things happening in California. Oakland just tossed their mayor and DA.
They did. Yeah, they did. Yep. By the recall. Less than 2 years.
A recall. A huge margin, too. I think California might actually be smart.
Well, here's the thing. Is it most of the country? We're looking at 76% now, they think they figured out, voted for Trump. And that's if you ignore any of the shenanigans.
Oh, right? I'm not saying Kamala. I'm not saying Kamala Harris is going to win governor. I'm saying that she will attempt to run for governor.
Yeah, I can see that though being a problem because, like, as you notice with California, as with every other state, there's only a few spots of blue, and outside of like the few dots here and there throughout the country, the biggest spot is that coast. Otherwise, the rest of California was pretty damn red.
Yeah, they got rid of Gascon. They got rid of Oakland mayor and DA, and there's a lot of other movement there too. So yeah, no, it's the whole landscape's changing.
That was another sidetrack. I just thought that was funny that she's now nothing more than a political joke and footnote. But that being said, so Paul, did you get a chance to react to the Star Wars news? I stepped away for a second.
Well, I mean, it is interesting. I like Daisy Ridley. I think she's been done wrong.
Yeah,
she doesn't like you very much. I heard.
I heard that. I've heard that, but I have nothing but good things to say about her. And she fills the screen well. She's radiant. She has that proper actress Q-tip proportions where the head is unusually larger than the rest of the body in a weird way, which is what a lot of actors actually stars actually display. I've researched it. It's an interesting phenomenon. I think, what's happening is that the management at Disney are just so ashamed of the crappy movies that they put her in that they just go, okay, this one will be good. This one will be good. Just like we promise. So they're keeping around for that.
Do you really think that there's a realization within Disney and in Lucasfilm that the movies are good or weren't good?
No, I'm kidding. But the thing is, yeah, she's, I think she is a good brand image for a failed series. I would have loved to have seen her in a good one because she can do it. She doesn't. I mean, it's not her fault that she was a Mary Sue. That was how.
No one is blaming her.
No, I like her, but
what I will blame her for is her stupid takes out in the press about like how Star Wars destroyed my career. It's like, are you shitting me, lady?
I remember that.
You're working more during COVID than anybody else is. She's had nonstop work. And we compared this to the whole, look at the original cast. Outside of Harrison Ford, it's hard to argue that anybody had any real success past the Star Wars trilogy.
But
other than
what?
Carrie
It's a
Fisher
harmless
writing wise. But
compared to all the other comments all these other actors make, that was pretty harmless.
Yeah,
it was. But I think it's really tone deaf in a sense that she has a career because of Star Wars. Let's be real. Nobody knew who she was before Star Wars.
Of course, that's the nature of the beast.
The fact that she's done garbage since Star Wars, that's her agent's fault, manager's fault, whoever's making these decisions for her, right? Like that, we can't speak.
You know what? We don't know whether there were movies that came up that she wanted to be in, and the producers didn't want her auditioning or anywhere near the movie. We don't know that.
Very possible, but at the end of the day, she has nobody to blame but herself.
This is
honestly, if I was her, I would be smart and see how this has destroyed her image, and I wouldn't come anywhere near another Star Wars fucking project. I'd tell them to go kick rocks.
She's making money.
Well, yes, this is the Star Wars curse, isn't it?
It's tough to say no to Star Wars, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is the Star Wars curse. Like Mark Hamill, he was in a whole bunch of crap Star Wars, the biggest thing in his career up until maybe the Batman animated series. Hayden Christensen's career hasn't exactly been stellar since Star Wars. He's done a couple of good movies. I like Shattered Glass. I like things like that. But this is just it. When you hit the top of the mountain as far as franchises go, where else can you go from there?
Exactly.
Unless you really, really leverage it. Usually it's the peripheral
You do the Adam
actors.
Driver thing. You go and you do.
Well, yeah, but Adam Driver was not the star of the show. He was the villain. He could do on the side.
Fair. He's
so
the closest thing to Harrison Ford in that group. Basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and he had a lot of consolidated roles in that entire endeavor. But Daisy Ridley, of all the leading female franchise stars, and we'll get to another one shortly in a story. As Paul said, she's been the most unoffensive, let's say, in responding to any criticisms about the franchise or the character or anything else. She's been a professional the entire time. She was even on.
She just called us all a bunch of names not too long ago.
What? Okay, I must have missed this because she was on a talk show where she was asked about the backlash to Star Wars.
She has done a little bit of both. She has attacked the fans and she has defended the fans.
Yeah, okay. Honestly, a lot of people are like, I have a hate boner for her. No, I don't have a hate boner for her. I just never thought she was that great of an actress. I don't find her entertaining. I don't really sit there and want to watch her. She was the worst part of the Star Wars trilogy in a very bad set of films. She is just a fucking piece of wood that's about 2 steps away from
look.
I'm sorry. I just didn't find her remotely viewable.
I put that to the writing and the direction first and foremost. She worked with what she had given, what she was told to do, and the takes they decided to use. Same thing with Hayden Christensen. He came across as this boring wooden guy, and then you see him in some other roles, and he's a perfectly great actor when he's given the right material and the right direction. So I don't. Maybe just my mind. I don't look at her as
Michael
like a bad
Burnham,
actress.
That's what I was trying to think of, but yeah.
Yeah, Michael Burnham. Yeah, but anyway, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, Scribe. But no, like I can understand where it's like some people are like, yeah, it's not her fault. It's not her fault. But she has done nothing for me since then that makes me realize, see why she's a movie star.
Okay.
That's the thing. She's done nothing but flops. This is her only thing she's got, and that's probably why she's doing it. If anything, I just hope to see it happen just because it'll make us money.
Well, I think that's obviously why she's doing it. She knows that she is never, ever in her career likely to do anything that's going to pay better than the Star Wars things if they happen. And who knows?
True.
My guess is that if they do the first one, it's going to bomb so badly there's not going to be a trilogy to follow it, because that's my guess here. I agree with the others. I don't think that Rey is the problem in any way, or the actress is the problem in any way, shape, or form. Her problem is that she is the face of the destruction of Star Wars. She is recognizable. Yeah. Very few have a strong negative reaction to her personally, but a lot of people, pretty much every Star Wars fan, has a negative association with the sequel trilogy. And she's the face of the sequel trilogy. I think that if Disney thinks that she is their biggest asset and best hope for Star Wars is concerned, they are sadly mistaken. Because she is, through no fault of her own, the face of the destruction of Star Wars. And now that is the face that they hope to build upon further. I do not see that working.
It would take an amazing piece of writing to have a redemption arc, not only for the character, but for the franchise. I mean, it's not impossible that they could try to salvage this in some way, but there would have to be such a mea culpa to the fan base in some fashion, either through the material itself or publicly from the studio, something. But like I said at the time, like you said,
just that they're doing this means we're not getting it. This is them doubling down.
Well, yeah. Again, they're still pushing for this because what do they have left? Like I said, they've destroyed every other iconic element of Star Wars. They've sullied it with either their identity politics or simply just destroying the characters from within. And they've wanted to Kathleen Kennedy's entire agenda has been to do away with Lucas Star Wars and put in place her own version of Star Wars. And I guess, like you said, in a way, by default, they've won because nobody wants it anymore, and this is the most identifiable element of it.
This is what you call a Pyrrhic victory.
Yes, I was about to say a Pyrrhic victory. I was about to say.
The stupid part about this is they could go away from this.
Yes.
There is a slight chance for some sort of decent trilogy out of this. Because, look, Kimberg is a mostly miss, but once in a great while, he can come up with something that the audience likes. That's why he still has a job. And all they had to do is just do something in a galaxy far, far away, but just not so long ago, right? Like, make it something that's a little bit newer, like jump ahead a bit. But the problem they have here is the ultimate issue. It was what Rey Palpatine actually represents, and compared to what they think she represents. See, us as the audience, we call her Rey Palpatine for a reason, because we're not delusional. We see exactly who she is. She represents the fact that they snuffed out the Skywalker bloodline, right? Make no mistake about it. But I said this, and mark my words, this is how they're going to get back around that. When Kylo Ben sacrificed himself to bring her back to life, he gave her a Force baby that will in turn be his actual child, hence be the next Skywalker line. Because as we keep hearing, this next Rey movie or this next set of films is supposed to be more revolved around her daughter or something like that. And how she's supposed to be the next coming of Luke, and how Rey is supposed to slide into the Obi-Wan Kenobi role now.
Well, whatever the plot details will be, Rey represents usurpation, not innovation. And that's what it is, both for the franchise being bought up by Disney.
She's going to be the greatest single mama ever.
Overwriting the expanded universe, the legends, all this. And that's what they can't escape. They'll never be able to escape that because it was part of the plan the entire time. And the only way, like they say, the only way to get rid of this is to jump ahead 200 years, effectively not even mention the sequel trilogy, and try it with a brand new set of characters, disconnected from all this stuff. But apparently they're doubling down, which is unfortunate, because the only future for this franchise is either the distant past or the far future, if you get my meaning.
That or alternate timeline, or somehow remove the sequel
Well,
trilogy.
they've
because-
managed to make it
Multiverse.
unhip.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's good. That's also true. Yeah.
that's exactly accurate.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
because the way
because-
they sold the original Star Wars was nobody had ever spent so much money and time for fun, right? And this shit is not fun anymore.
Well,
Sorry,
that's my point. Yeah, I've been a lot of stuff in Hollywood is not fun. This is all meant to be fun, and I hate to say this, but this is guy fun. This is a bunch of nerds getting together, creating a film, and it's got guy thinking all over it, because this is the way guys think. This is the kind. There's very few major IPs outside of Harry Potter that women come up with. Women come up with good movies, but not IPs. And it's usually men that create these overarching.
Don't forget the Twilight
experiences.
Lady, but yes, I take your point and
Yeah, well, Twilight.
run with it, because you're right. Like, this movie is a bunch of gear porn. It's a bunch of
Yep.
nerds. It's a
Yep.
bunch of the old school kind of Hollywood storytelling mixed with modern technology.
Yep. This is what happens. This is one of the reasons why you don't know a single novel on the New York Times bestseller list, because it's all mediated by. I won't go any. I'm just going to get myself into trouble.
Well, no, that's another conversation for another time, though. What we've had a few times where it's like Hollywood, that used to be kind of their bread and butter, they'd go to, and where we get all these original stories and these, bigger concepts. I mean, if it wasn't for the novel, we wouldn't have had Jaws,
No, of
God
course.
of Wind, Godfather, all the most popular
No,
films
no.
of all time up until
Yeah, I
this.
mean, you're not going to see a Waiting for Garp. You're not going to see, any Philip Roth style novel anymore. I mean, that's
Which
all.
is why something like Saturday Night for me was refreshing. Now, like 10 years ago, would I have thought this movie was as good as I did now? Possibly not. But
Well-
because we get so little now like that, yeah.
And you could kind of guess the anarchy that Michael, what was his name?
Lorne Michaels.
No, not Lorne Michaels, the writer,
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
the guy who put the spike in his eye.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of his name.
Yeah, I mean, and I knew him from the National Lampoon magazines, of which I think I have almost every single issue. And again, it's comedic anarchy. Python was comedic anarchy. And you need a certain amount of anarchy even in these kinds of efforts too. So
You're not wrong, Paul, and that's part of the problem with Rey. And another thing that her character represents is that it's Star Wars taking itself way too fucking seriously.
yes, exactly right. It's basically Flash Gordon with
Which was the
Kurosawa.
main mistake. Yeah, which was the main mistake that Lucas made with the prequels. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of hate on this, but that's one of the things that doesn't set as well with me with the prequels. And that's why the first film, Episode 1, is the only one of the prequels that feels more like a Star Wars film, although Episode 3 is the better of the films, is because they take themselves way too seriously in the prequels. And it kind of works against the films. And it works for the third film, but against the other ones. And the first film, though, it had a lot of fun moments in it. And it kind of actually felt like, yeah, we're kind of dipping our toes back into the Star Wars pond a little bit. But since then, I've had a hard time feeling like I've stepped back into the galaxy far, far away.
I give the Prequels. There's my there's my
The Creekles.
copyright.
Yeah, they're a little
There you
creaky.
go.
Yeah, that's my copyright now. I've copyrighted Prequels. Is that they at least expanded the Star Wars universe?
Yes,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the one
for
thing
all
that I
the-
appreciated. Is
Yeah, for
that
all the minor quibbles. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. As far as world building and trying
World
to move
building.
on and give a broader look at what the workings of the universe is, and also the other thing that I really appreciated the prequels for, amongst everything else, is that it created and generated far more story hooks for the imagination of the audience. Because one of the elements of Star Wars that I was dabbling in both as a kid and older is the role playing games. The role playing games, especially the West End games, really expanded on what little there was of the universe in the movies and then the novels. And I at least appreciated the prequels for trying to do something different, giving you a different element, because the original films were very small in scope as far as the focus of what was going on, but they hinted at larger things, like they offhandedly mentioned you fought in the Clone Wars, things like that sort of like hinted that there was other stuff going on, and the used universe element. I like the prequels for expanding out things. I also thought the prequels, at least my notion of their progression, like you talked about episode 3 versus episode 1, it always felt to me like the movies were meant to grow with the audience. So the first one is kind of fun and adventurous and very sort of kid-centric. And then they slowly got darker and more serious.
Well, Return of the
sort
Jedi
of like
leaned back into the one, but then episode
Teddy
2 and
Bears.
3 took that road back down the darker path. No, but there's that ebb and flow of it. But you guys aren't wrong. But there's none of that shit in the sequel films, right? Like that's the problem. Is you go into these movies and there's none of the magic, the element of what we've had before. And the problem is, okay, so in the original film we got to see the fall of the Empire, right? In the original trilogy. And then in the prequel trilogy we got to see the rise of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they were doing that again-ish with the sequel trilogy. So it's like, okay, you're completely missing the boat here and what George would have brought to the table. You got to bring a completely different angle to this, right? So, and as I've said before, the best way I think they could have approached this was the enemy within, right? You think there's peace and prosperity. You think Luke and Leia have brought the galaxy together and everything's fine, when you realize, no, it's not, because this whole time you have somebody inside who's disrupting things again, just like they were with Phantom Menace. Only now you come to find out it's your own son, right? Like all this time, that's kind of what it was anyway, but it's like we get stuck with the afterthought of it all. We don't get to actually see what happened to get us there.
Well, what I had hoped from the title of the first sequel movie is I thought that the progression was going to be, you're right, in the prequel movies we saw the fall of the Jedi, the rise of the Empire. In the original trilogy, you saw the fall of the Empire and the rebirth of the Jedi. I thought that the sequel trilogy would show a new Jedi Order sort of at its idealistic ascent.
Well, they would be part of it too.
And there'd be a lot more adventure, a little bit more optimistic in the first movie, where you see like, oh, well, here's the new Jedi Order, the Force Awakens, and now it's this, that, and the other. Except it was a reset. It was just a reset back to the original trilogy, like you said, and it was a waste of time.
And what you can do with that, though, is when the Force Awakens on one side, it always awakens another side too, right? And that's where like you have a new Phantom Menace involved, right?
Sure.
Where it's where Luke and Leia and Han are too wrapped up in this new empire, new king, whatever you want to call it, new order or whatever they created. Republic, thank you. And that they haven't been paying attention to their kid. So their kid is now being poisoned by the Snoke character, right? And it's all there. You have the elements to work with. It was just the way it was put together, right? That was the problem. And again, Rey, another character who could have been fine, but between, I think, the choices made, so I agree with you guys, and secondary, I do think the actress is a problem. She does not have that gee golly shucks nature that Mark Hamill had in his early mock 20s. She just has this, I'm British and I'm too stuffy for this shit attitude for everything. Well, that's my problem with her.
I was just going to say that I know, I'm fairly certain that J.J. Abrams, the movie that he did, the one that kind of discombobulated everything, it in his mind, it all started with trying to replicate Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph in the Will. that one scene where you had all of Kylo Ren's minions, and the red and the black and the white. I bet you the entire movie was based on him working from that, because it shouldn't have been about that first movie. Should have been about the rebels, or whatever they're called now. They got called
the Resistance.
The Resistance became the governing group. The first movie, well, the next trilogy should have been, it was really easy to overthrow the Empire, but now you got to run the place. And
it could have been like sort of like Ghostbusters, like starting up a new business kind of thing. It's
that's
like, okay,
exactly,
you got what you wished for. Right.
And now you got to deal with pockets that still
Yeah,
are
yeah. Like
right.
in the expanded universe, there was this. The constant problem was the split up empire was divided then into a series of warlords who decided to try to declare themselves the new emperor or something.
I didn't make this up, but my point was that J.J. Abrams was so fixated on Levi Riefenstahl's image that he had to resurrect the empire as if it never went away.
And that was
still the power in the universe.
And
that was the failing of that movie.
Yeah. And that's what I was getting at is the whole time. Has everybody here seen the movie No Way Out with Kevin Costner and Gene Hackman?
Yeah.
You know how that movie ends?
It's a remake of The Big Clock.
Yes. So that's basically kind of the concept this has to be, is like you have this problem where it's like everybody thinks that everything's great. And then all of a sudden you realize, no, it's not. And not only is it not good, the person you think you can trust the most is the person who's doing everything, right? Like that's kind of what I was getting at, is like you think, okay, so it's like Kylo Ren, he's like the son, right? Like as Ben, but then you come to find out he's the one who's turning and twisting all the knives in everybody's back, and that brings back the Empire in full force.
That's like way down the line. Actually, Kylo Ren should have been Osama bin Laden, where he's actually recreating a force based on his charisma and will. He should have been a jihadist. He should have been the one in the caverns and the caves of all these places trying to stay away from the New Order or whatever. Again,
I could see that, because like the whole thing,
that's how it should have been. And the New Order should have been in the shiny buildings and stuff like that. Not the New Order. It's the New Order was Kylo Ren's thing. I can never.
There's the First Order and the New Republic.
Yeah. See, the
New Republic were the rebels, right? The rebels became the New Republic.
The rebels became the New Republic, and then the factioned empire became the First Order.
The fact that old Leia was still in caverns was ridiculous. She should have been in the big bureaucratic buildings.
Yeah, why would she be on the margins of all the people? Why
exactly?
Yeah, it made no sense.
Made no sense. Kylo Ren should have been Osama bin Laden. That should have been
you and I are kind of getting in the same direction, Paul, in that, basically you reverse the roles. In this movie, Leia and all her team, they look like they're the Empire, where they've got all the power. And in the reversal, you have the bad guys who are coming in like guerrilla warfare, taking things out one by one by one without them realizing it. Before they know it, they've lost more than they've gained, and they're under attack. Yeah, right? And that's where you said by the second film is when you do the flip with the No Way Out, and you realize, oh shit, it was Kylo Ren this whole time, kind of thing.
Well, the whole three movies could have been a very nice progression. The one problem that they would have had, which obviously the first three movies had, is that it's really fun when you've got a godlike character as your lead, and Luke is Jesus, and that also helped the game Mass Effect. And also Shepard was the person who could ultimately control the universe, and in Skyrim you had the Dovahkiin, who was actually the one person who could speak to dragons. Those are very powerful characters, and Luke became a really strong Jedi, and that should have been we all know that should have been a part of the trilogy. The Disney trilogy was that aspect of Luke and his power, and we never got to see that. He became a pathetic soul. So when you're having the first three Star Wars movies that featured a neo god, that actually really helps in terms of your story. So you lose that in the Disney trilogies, so you need something else to make it interesting. Anyway, I'm not.
Well, no. And the other thing I did like about the sequel trilogy, and I thought they didn't really explore well enough, was Kylo Ren's obsession with his grandfather. Because that's something as a father I noticed. Like, me and my son don't have a lot in common, but he has a lot in common with my dad, right? Like, grandpas and kids. Grandpas are, as the old Cosby joke says, that's not the man I grew up with. He's old and trying to get into heaven now.
I was hoping for a creepy Vader cult. I wanted to see like a cult of Darth Vader kind of build up, but we never got that. This kid was so obsessed with his grandfather because he wasn't alive during his reign. He doesn't have any clue of how bad he really was, right? And he probably would get mixed messages through his family. On the one hand, everybody's talking about how great Anakin supposedly was, which they never did show in the prequels. But anyway,
And then you have the other side, which is, how bad Darth Vader was. And, so like that was another element I don't think they've explored well enough, and things that could have been dealt with. But anyway, let's get past Star Wars, because
Oh my
Yeah,
God, we're
let's do
still
that.
talking about Star Wars, dear Lord.
yeah, let's get way past
It's
Star Wars.
Rey's fault. It's this Rey
It
news.
is.
That's the fault. It's her fault. I blame Rey.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9 AM Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe and join us.